They always thought we were harmless. That was their first mistake. For 86 years, Earth had been part of the Galactic Council. We followed their rules, sat quietly in the back rows, applauded when told, and surrendered our tech like good little savages. They laughed at our history, snickered at our brutal past, and told us we'd finally civilized ourselves by joining them. What they didn't know was we were holding back. I remember the day everything changed. I was stationed on Echelon Prime, the so-called heart of Council diplomacy. Clean towers, silver skies, arrogant species with soft hands and colder hearts. I wasn't a soldier anymore. They called me Human Liaison Officer, which really meant pet earthling who smiles when the real powers walk in. But when the Council voted to penalize Earth for non-compliance, I knew it was coming. They said we had refused to share all our military data, that we had violated trust. Trust? What trust? We gave them fusion reactors, medical breakthroughs, climate stabilizers. They gave us orders. And when we asked to keep just one defensive protocol classified, they acted like we'd committed war crimes. The penalties weren't the worst part. What really hit hard was when they handed our orbital defense satellites to the Drankari. That cold-blooded lizard race despised us. Always had, always will. They called us monkeys with delusions of dominance. The Council thought putting them in charge of Earth's skies would send a message. Yeah, it did. It told every Earth-born human that we were never equal in their eyes. That our place was to serve, not to stand. The first strike happened 11 days later, not on a battlefield, not in space, right in a refugee station above Saturn's moon Titan. A Council ship flown by a Drankari commander accidentally launched a kinetic rod through the habitat shield. 2,000 civilians gone. Mostly children and medics. They called it a tragic malfunction. I saw the footage. There was no malfunction. The next morning, Earth recalled every single diplomat from Council space quietly. No threats, no angry speeches, just gone. 3 days after that, our communication relays went dark. Not jammed, not destroyed, just switched off like someone pulled the plug. Then came silence. You see, what they never understood, what no one in that gilded council chamber ever bothered to ask was why Earth had gone so quiet for so long. They thought we were scared. No. We were constructing, preparing, not because we wanted war, but because we knew it would come. By the time the Council noticed the silence, it was too late. They dispatched a recon fleet to check in on Earth. 5 capital ships, 12 cruisers, and over 50 fighters, all loaded with high-spec sensors and automated translators, probably expecting to catch us violating something. None of them returned. Council Command chalked it up to a natural anomaly. A black hole surge, gravitational interference. I heard all the excuses. They couldn't accept the truth. That Earth had finally stopped playing nice. The day the truth hit, I was sitting in a council chamber filled with diplomats who still didn't take humans seriously. I watched their faces change when the emergency alert came in. An entire outpost on the fringe of the Varexian belt wiped off the map. No trace of attackers, no communications, just ashes and a single message left behind in flawless galactic standard. You drew first blood. Earth answers last. The room went cold. One of the elders, some crusty 12-limbed politician from the Joltari cluster, finally said what none of them wanted to hear. Earth has gone rogue. I didn't say a word, just watched. Because the truth was, we hadn't gone rogue. We were just being ourselves for the first time in a century. They kept calling it a miscommunication. Even after 3 more listening posts went dark. No warning, no transmission, just obliterated in a blink, the Council still refused to believe it was us. The Varexian outpost had been just the beginning. We didn't fire nukes. We didn't send fleets. That would have made it too obvious. We did something worse. We vanished. Earth went dark. No traffic in or out. No trade ships, no diplomats, not even pirate signals. It was like the planet folded in on itself and disappeared from the galactic stage. Every known Earth outpost deactivated its transponders. Every AI communication channel went offline. Even our shared research projects suddenly lost access to every Earth database. And still the Council refused to panic because deep down they wanted to believe we were still the harmless pets they thought we were. The ones they could restrain with penalties, intimidate with starfleets, silence with shame. They didn't realize we'd just been waiting for them to cross a line. I was one of the few humans left in Council space. Technically a civilian observer, though by then even that was a lie. I had orders, quiet ones. And I wasn't the only one. Scattered across Council space, there were dozens of us lying in wait, not to attack, to watch. And when the time came, to witness, because Earth wasn't just retaliating, it was making a point. The next strike hit the Hadrix Array, a massive research facility orbiting the twin suns of Krells. It was protected by 3 fleets, 30 automated defense grids, and 8 planetary centuries. State-of-the-art funded by half the Council. They used it to map dark matter anomalies across the quadrant. They found their own destruction instead. I still remember the message sent out afterward. Short, brutal, human. We gave you peace. You gave us graves. The Council called an emergency meeting. Not just the usual dozen power species, but all 300 member races. They tried to spin it like Earth had become unstable, dangerous. Some even said we were being manipulated, maybe by the Zikhive or some rogue AI faction. They couldn't accept that humanity, the galaxy's silent partner, was now leading its own war. They needed a scapegoat. And they tried to find one in me. 2 Council guards escorted me from my quarters before sunrise. No warning, no charges, just cold eyes and the kind of grip that said resistance wouldn't end well. They dragged me to the high chamber, some ceremonial courtroom where they dealt with high-profile threats. I'd been there once before, years ago, during a trade dispute. It had seemed majestic then. Now it just felt hollow. Dozens of species filled the observation decks. No cheers, no outrage, just curiosity and fear. The central figure, Archon Telmar, an amphibious, bloated creature with silver gills and a voice like gurgling oil, spoke first. Human Alexander, you stand here representing your species. What do you say to these acts of destruction attributed to your kind? I stood silent for a moment, scanning their faces. Some looked away. Some met my eyes, searching for some explanation that would comfort them. That would make this not their fault. I gave them none. What did you expect? I asked. My voice echoed louder than I thought. You handed our orbit to an enemy race. You killed our children. And then you called us aggressive. Telmar's face hardened. Your world was offered every opportunity to comply with the Council. You rejected unity. No, I snapped. We honored unity. We contributed more than anyone. We gave tech you couldn't even understand. We offered medicine that cured your plagues. We held back because we believed in peace. But every time we gave, you took more. And when we said no once, you responded with death. A silence followed, thick and charged. Another elder, a slim fox-faced diplomat from the Visari, spoke next. Surely you don't expect us to believe Earth would willingly isolate itself and commit acts of war. You still don't get it, I said quietly. You still think we need you. That's when the lights cut. Not just in the chamber, across the entire Council spire. Power outages in Council space. Telmar looked at me with something I hadn't seen in him before. Genuine fear. What is your government's demand? He asked, voice low. I shook my head. You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiation. This is the reveal. For 100 years, you thought Earth had gone soft, civilized. You thought we'd traded our fire for comfort. I stepped forward, and the guards didn't stop me. They were too busy checking their useless weapons. The truth is, we observed you for what you were, decadent, arrogant, and weak. And we knew that sooner or later you'd turn on us. So, we prepared silently, relentlessly. And now, I smiled. Now you get to see what we really are. The screen behind me flickered to life. Another failure, they thought until they saw what was being broadcast. Earth. Not a live feed, a recording. Dozens of them. Military factories. Orbital weapons that hadn't existed on any council blueprint. AI-driven war machines that made their drones look like toys. And the worst of all, the ARC protocol. They had no idea what it was, but it terrified them. I watched as species after species realized the Council's power had never been real. It was borrowed, stolen, and Earth had stopped lending. That day, Earth didn't invade. Didn't occupy, didn't ask. It just pulled the curtain back and showed the galaxy how small it really was. The message ended and the chamber fell into stunned silence. No one spoke. What could they say? Then the second message began. This one wasn't pre-recorded. It was live. A man's face appeared on screen. Older, maybe late 50s. Stern grey streaks in his hair. No medals, no fancy titles, just a plain black shirt with an Earth insignia behind him. He spoke softly, coldly to the Galactic Council. This is not a war declaration. This is a correction. For decades, Earth has contributed knowledge, resources, and peace. You responded with arrogance, theft, and violence. You took our goodwill for weakness. You mistook mercy for cowardice. Let me be clear. We do not want conquest. We do not seek destruction. But we will never be beneath you again. Earth is no longer part of your council. And from this point forward, you will never see us coming. The screen went dark. And in that moment, every single species in that chamber knew the truth. Earth had never been tame. They'd just been too blind to see the leash was never around our neck. The council didn't fall in a day. They staggered first like a boxer who just took a punch he never saw coming. The declaration from Earth left them shaken, but still clinging to the illusion of control. Meetings were called hourly. Emergency subcommittees formed and dissolved within hours. They debated restrictions, countermeasures, defensive posturing. None of it mattered because for the first time in recorded galactic history, Earth had gone silent and no one could do a damn thing about it. I spent the next 3 days locked in a high-security observation chamber. They called it protective custody, but it felt more like a panic room. I wasn't interrogated. I wasn't charged. They just didn't know what to do with me. I was the closest thing to a liaison Earth had left. And even that was a lie now. One of the guards, a six-eyed brute from the Karathai colonies, finally broke protocol and asked me, why didn't we see it? Why didn't anyone see what your kind was capable of? I stared at him for a long time before answering. You saw it, I said. You just didn't want to believe it because the signs had always been there. Earth was the only species that had survived 2 self-inflicted nuclear holocausts and still clawed its way back. We were the only civilization that had weaponized extinction multiple times, then buried it like it never happened. We had collapsed our economy, destroyed ecosystems, rewired our DNA, and still reached for the stars. The Council thought that made us unpredictable. What they didn't realize was that it made us inevitable. The fracture began on day 4. The Drankari were the first to break ranks. They'd always been Earth's loudest critics, sneering at our primal instincts and uncivilized history. They were also the ones who bombed the Titan station. And now they were scared. Their colony on Arak 7 went dark overnight. No explosion, no trace of battle, just gone. 17 million of their kind erased from existence. The Council assumed it was a glitch in the planetary net. Then came the drone footage. A lone human vessel hovering in low orbit. No weapons discharged. No announcements made. Then it vanished. The Drankari ambassador stormed into the main council chamber that morning, demanding full military retaliation. Earth has crossed every line, he bellowed. They must be eliminated before they destroy us all. But the others, they weren't so sure anymore. The Vizari, the Khorne, the Lucari Syndicate, all of them had profited from Earth. They'd grown fat on human tech, expanded their fleets with Earth-designed AI, and healed their diseases with Earth-born medicine. They didn't want a war, especially not one they weren't sure they could win. Earth is only one planet, someone said, trying to sound confident. They cannot stand against all of us. That's when the real footage leaked. The ARP protocol, not some doomsday weapon. Something worse. The ARP protocol was Earth's exit strategy, not from the Council, but from the galaxy itself. Hidden colonies, independent fleets, thousands of cloaked ships carrying hundreds of thousands of civilians, soldiers, scientists, entire biomes launched quietly over decades into deep space. They weren't preparing to fight the galaxy. They were preparing to outlive it because Earth had always known this day would come. Maybe not exactly like this, but close enough that eventually someone would test our limits, push too far, break something we couldn't forgive. And when that happened, we wouldn't ask for help. We'd leave the fire burning behind us and just walk away. After the ARP footage spread, everything shifted. The smaller species panicked. Trade collapsed. 2 member worlds shut their borders entirely, afraid Earth might already be there. The banking clans froze interstellar credit transfers, afraid of human interference. Half of the outposts near Sol pulled their fleets back, not to fight, but to flee. It was a silent confession, really. They knew Earth had been holding back, and now they didn't know what else we were hiding. That's when the Council turned on each other. The Visari accused the Khorne of harboring human sympathizers. The Jalari called for preemptive strikes on all Sol-adjacent systems. The Drankari began raiding fringe colonies in self-defense, triggering border skirmishes that hadn't happened in a century. Peace had always been fragile. Earth was just the hammer that broke the glass. I watched it unfold from inside a cold, sterile cell. No windows, just news feeds and Council alerts. I didn't speak for days. What could I say? Humanity hadn't started the war. I didn't ask how they found me. I didn't ask how they were inside Council systems again because I already knew. She took me through underground access tunnels I'd never even known existed. It was chaos above. Fights, riots, rumors of an assassination. The spire was collapsing under its own paranoia. We emerged in a hangar bay I'd never seen before. Dark, unregistered, completely off-grid. And sitting inside it was something that didn't belong there. A human stealth frigate. Black as oil, silent as death. Are we the last ones? I asked her as we approached. She didn't look at me. No, just the last ones you'll see. As I stepped onto the ship, I paused, turned around. You think this ends in war? I asked. She tilted her head almost like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then she smiled. A bitter broken thing. It already did, she said. You just didn't notice because Earth didn't fire the first shot. The ramp sealed behind me. We left orbit in silence. Hours later, the Council spire exploded. No warning, no survivors. A containment breach triggered by unknown factors, they said. But the truth, there was no sabotage. They destroyed it themselves. Because after Earth's message, after the system's blackout, after the data leak of the ARP protocol, the Council knew they weren't safe anymore. Not from us, not from each other. The very institution they built, the structure that gave them power, had become a target. And like cowards, they did what all dying empires do. They burned the evidence and ran. Back aboard the frigate, I sat alone in a cold metal room, staring at a single screen, waiting. I didn't know who would contact me. Maybe no one. Maybe this was just the end. But then the screen blinked and a voice filled the room. Not a face, just a voice. Male, calm, American accent, I think. Familiar, but distant. You did your job, the voice said. They saw what we wanted them to see. I nodded. You think they'll come after us? A pause. They'll think about it. Then they'll remember what happened to the Drankari colonies. And they'll think again. I looked down. My hands were still shaking. So what now? Another pause. Then the voice answered. Now we vanish. Let them fight each other. Let the galaxy burn if it wants to. Earth gave them a century of peace. They squandered it. And us? I asked. We just disappear. The voice didn't hesitate. We build something better. Then the screen went dark, and for the first time in my life, I felt what they must have felt when they first saw us rise from the ashes of our own extinction. Fear, not of war, not of death, but of what happens when humanity finally decides it's done playing nice. The stars looked different now. Not brighter, not darker, just emptier. From the deck of the stealth frigate, I stared into the silence of deep space, trying to grasp the scale of what had just happened. The Galactic Council, an empire that had ruled half the known galaxy for centuries, was crumbling. Not because we'd bombed their capitals or unleashed super weapons. We'd done something worse. We made them irrelevant. Humanity had stepped off the stage, and the whole galaxy had no idea what to do without us. I hadn't spoken to another human in over a week. The ship was AI-run. No crew, efficient, silent, clinical, just me and the hum of systems that responded to thoughts more than words. It was lonely. But then again, loneliness was something we'd mastered long before space travel. Earth had been on its own since the beginning. We were accustomed to isolation. We grew in it. The AI finally pinged me on day 10. Approaching Arc Nexus 3. Prepare for transition. I leaned forward. Confirm origin. Is it ours? Nexus 3 was established under Black Protocol Alpha. Earth origin command structure. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. So, it was real. They told me about the arcs during my training, but even then it had sounded like rumor. Ghost ships launched in secret. Deep space colonies buried inside planetary shells. Fleets that never showed up on any chart. Earth had scattered its survival like seeds in the wind, waiting, watching, ready to grow if things went wrong. And now, those seeds were awakening. The ship eased through a cloud of static, past a decoy moon that shielded a gravitational anomaly. Then, without warning, space ripped. Not violently, quietly, like a curtain pulled back. Behind it was a station the size of a small planet. Black metal. No lights, no signals. Until we got close. Then it lit up like a heartbeat. Nexus 3. Home. The inside of the Ark felt less like a station and more like a bunker built by madmen and visionaries. Every corridor was layered in kinetic shielding. Every room could convert into a combat-ready lockdown within seconds. Weapons were everywhere, integrated into walls, hidden in floors, even embedded in ceilings. Civilian tech merged with war design like someone had built paradise and rigged it to explode just in case. And yet it was beautiful, quiet, clean, controlled, efficient like Earth used to be before we started playing diplomat. I was greeted by a man who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Gaunt, mid-40s, military haircut, arms like steel cables, no name badge, no rank, just nodded at me and said, "You're late." "Ship took the long way," I said. He cracked a smile that never touched his eyes. "Everything takes the long way now. Come on." He led me to a debriefing chamber. Plain, circular, no windows. Inside there were 6 others. All human, all sharp-eyed, silent, hardened. No one introduced themselves. No handshakes, just mutual recognition. We were survivors. We were weapons waking up in a galaxy that no longer had any rules. The man, who still never gave his name, stood at the center and activated a 3D holographic projection. Dozens of red marks blinked across the galaxy. "Council is done," he said. "Factions are tearing each other apart. The Drankari lost 3 colonies to civil unrest. The Vizari executed half their senate after a failed alliance attempt. Trade networks are collapsing and everyone's looking over their shoulder for us." He smiled. "And they should be." One of the others, older, maybe ex-special forces by the look of him, leaned forward. "You think they'll come at us together? Make a play." The man shook his head. "They can't. They are too terrified of each other now. Earth was the glue. They took us for granted. Now they are panicking. What's our move?" I asked. He paused, looked around the room, then said what none of us expected. "We don't move." The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was tension. Controlled, waiting. He stepped closer to the holographic map and tapped a green icon, a blinking dot deep in unexplored space. "That's Arc Nexus 5. It activated last week. We now have 6 full Arc networks operational, self-sustaining, cloaked, armed, each capable of launching an extinction-level defense." Someone whistled. "So what? We just sit in the dark while the galaxy eats itself?" He looked at them, then at all of us. "We're not hiding. We're letting the galaxy remember what happens when Earth leaves the room. And when they finally crawl back, because they will crawl, we decide the terms." That was the strategy. Let the galaxy rot. Let them feel the absence of humanity. Let them destroy themselves. Then return, not as equals, but as architects. Over the next month, I worked as part of the Nexus Recon team. Our job was observation. Nothing more. No engagement, no contact, just listen. And what we heard confirmed everything. The Council remnants were falling apart. The Drankari were killing each other over control of surviving territories. One of their moons declared independence and was immediately glassed by orbiting loyalists. The Vizari tried to form a peace coalition, but were betrayed by 2 of their own species, leading to a planetary coup. Even worse, they still blamed Earth for all of it. Good. Let them. Because the more they blamed us, the more they revealed how much they depended on us. One of our Recon drones intercepted a transmission from the Lucari. They tried to duplicate Earth's AI systems to stabilize their banking clusters. It backfired. The AI triggered a logic collapse in their data centers, wiping out trillions in currency. They begged for Earth's help. No response. And the more silent we stayed, the more desperate they became. By the 3rd month, 3 major species had started openly broadcasting messages into deep space. "Earth, we are ready to talk. Humanity, the Council is no more. We seek alliance. We admit our mistakes. We beg your return." It would have been amusing if it weren't so pathetic. They never learned. They still thought Earth was just another player. What they didn't understand was that Earth was never playing their game. We'd just been watching. And now we were building our own. One night I was summoned again by the nameless commander. This time he looked different, older somehow, worn out. He handed me a data slate. New mission, he said. You're going back. I stared at him. Back where? Council space. I blinked. Why? Not as a diplomat, as a reminder. He tapped the slate. A list of coordinates, names, locations of key surviving council figures, leaders, scientists, military chiefs. Some of them are trying to rebuild the council quietly behind closed doors. Same hierarchy, same arrogance. We're not going to stop them. Why not? He smiled again. Cold, quiet. Because we want them to rebuild. Then we take it. That was Earth's final play. Let the galaxy patch itself back together just enough to stand. Then seize it, not with guns, but with presence, with control, quietly, strategically. We'd become the shadow behind every trade agreement, the architect behind every treaty, the ghost in every planetary system. We weren't here to be part of the galaxy anymore. We were here to own it. So, I took the mission back into council space, back into the ruins of an empire that once laughed at Earth. I walked among them like a ghost. No badge, no announcement, just eyes and ears. And everywhere I went, I saw the same thing. Fear. They whispered Earth's name like it was a god or a curse. Some blamed us for everything. Some begged for our return. But none of them dared raise a weapon because they all knew now humanity was never civilized. We were just polite. And we'd stopped being polite the moment they thought they could control us. The first lesson we taught them was fear. The second lesson was silence. The third was control. I moved like a shadow through the broken corridors of the Council's ruins, rebranded now as the Unified Star Alliance. Some desperate attempt to reforge what Earth had shattered. A few species still held on to their titles. Former senators, admirals, delegates, but they all had the same look in their eyes now. They didn't talk to each other without looking over their shoulders. They didn't make decisions without checking first who was listening. And I made sure they knew someone always was. My new identity was clean, fabricated, flawless. The ARC command had erased my real name the second I stepped onto Nexus 3. The person I used to be didn't exist anymore. I was now an independent tech consultant from a minor border system, fluent in 16 dialects, licensed in logistics, strategy, AI, infrastructure. The kind of person no one noticed until the wrong system failed at the worst time. Then they listened and I made sure what they heard was always just enough to keep them dependent. I embedded myself in the Lucari regrowth project first, a fumbling effort to stabilize interstellar trade routes after the collapse of the central banking grid. They were desperate, starving, clinging to the last fragments of Earth's AI systems, most of which they barely understood. They didn't know I'd helped design those systems 10 years ago. Didn't know Earth had built them with tripwires and hidden back doors. Didn't know I could crash their entire currency in 10 seconds with a neural flick. Instead, they begged for guidance. We can't get the adaptive chain to sync across the quadrant, their lead systems officer told me one evening, hands trembling over a glowing console. Every time we stabilize one sector, another collapses. It's like the damn thing's infected. I smiled. It's not infected. It's starving. Starving? I leaned closer. It's missing context. These systems were designed to operate alongside human cognitive architecture. Without human oversight, they become unstable. But we can't get Earth back. You don't need Earth, I lied. You need people like me. He looked at me like I was salvation itself. And just like that, the noose tightened. Within 2 weeks, I had access to 63% of the regrowth project's infrastructure. Every credit transaction, every resource trade, every shipment manifest. I rewrote protocols in the background. Small changes, nothing flashy, the kind you wouldn't notice until it was too late. Every time they fixed a glitch, it created a new one elsewhere. Every time they tried to optimize, the system just needed a little more of my help. And every time they called me back, they handed over a little more control. I wasn't the only one. Across the former Council territories, Earth's operatives moved like smoke. Engineers, advisors, consultants, never soldiers, never with guns. That would have been too obvious. No, we came offering solutions, peace, stability, guidance, and they lapped it up like starving dogs. Because while they spent the last century treating us like wild primitives with a knack for war, we had studied them, understood their psychology, mapped their weaknesses, their pride, their paranoia. We didn't need fleets to conquer them. We just needed access. I got my first glimpse of the new council chamber during a summit on Veltrix Prime. They called it the Coalition of Shared Prosperity, as if renaming the mess would erase the stench of failure. The chamber was smaller now, less formal, fewer species. Most of the old powers had collapsed or withdrawn completely. I wasn't allowed inside, of course, not officially, but I didn't need to be. The chamber's environmental control systems were patched into a logistics network I'd helped stabilize. That meant I could hear everything, every conversation, every bribe, every fear-soaked negotiation. And that's when I heard the phrase for the first time. We should ask Earth. It came from a Vazari minister. Her voice hushed but heavy with exhaustion. The others didn't argue. Not one. Not even the Drankari representative. What was left of them anyway? He just nodded and muttered, if they are still listening. They were all hoping we were still listening. And I made damn sure they knew we were. I leaked a memo 3 days later. Not officially, of course, just a simple transmission bouncing off a dozen shadowed relays worded carefully to sound like it wasn't supposed to be heard. Earth is not interested in resuming full membership. However, Earth is willing to support independent stabilization efforts through experienced human intermediaries. A single sentence, but it transformed everything. Suddenly, the requests flooded in. Advisors, mediators, infrastructure analysts, energy grid specialists, not soldiers, not diplomats, operatives. Earth was now the invisible empire. Our influence everywhere, our face nowhere. Back on Nexus 3, I reported to the commander in one of the Ark's black rooms. Same grey stare, same unreadable expression. He reviewed my updates without speaking. I could feel his mind parsing data faster than any Council AI ever could. After a while, he spoke. You see what's happening? Yeah, I said. They are crawling back one by one. They think they're hiring help. What they are doing is leasing sovereignty. I smirked. And they won't know they sold it until it's already gone. He leaned forward. You feel it yet? Feel what? He tapped his chest. The change. I didn't answer right away, but I did feel it. At first, this mission had been about vengeance, about making them pay for Titan, for the children, for the lies, for the penalties, for the way they made humanity grovel while stealing everything we gave them. But now, it was something more. This wasn't just punishment. This was evolution. Earth had stopped trying to fit into the galaxy's mold. Now we were reshaping the mold to fit us. Over the next year, Earth redefined galactic order, without a single official declaration, without a single fleet movement. We controlled trade routes by maintaining them. We monitored communications by repairing old satellites. We ran security by improving defense grids, and the galaxy let us. Because fear is a powerful motivator. And hope is even more dangerous. They hoped we were merciful. Hoped we'd be different this time. Hoped that our silence meant we weren't watching them fail.